Good afternoon, folks. We are just going to do a quick recorded video this afternoon. It is Thursday, December 22nd, about our current headlines in effect, what is still coming in the forecast with the winter storm that we have been experiencing so far this week. So we made a little bit of an overhaul to the headlines, the hazards that we have in effect or going into effect overnight, and we want to make sure everybody is up on those and any other forecast changes. So as you can see on the map on the right here, we do have majority winter weather advisory for most folks. This has been a downgrade from a winter storm warning across a good chunk of the area. The Twin Ports area is still staying in a winter storm warning, and then portions of the North Shore and South Shore have gone into a blizzard warning, and I'll talk about all of those in more detail in just a little bit. As far as the forecasted snowfall that we are expecting, for a good chunk of the area, especially on the Minnesota side of things, snowfall is over for most folks. You might see some flurries here and there, maybe up to an inch here in the Twin Ports, but the bulk of the snow accumulation was yesterday and overnight. Along the borderlands, across the boundary waters, parts of Lake and Cook County, could still see another couple inches, maybe 3 to 5 inches in the Grand Portage up the Gunflint Trail area, but not expecting too many impacts from that. The bulk of the snowfall accumulation that we are still expecting is on the South Shore as those northerly winds come in, really expecting that lake effect to pick up there. Widespread, kind of more than 6 or 8 inches, and especially in those higher terrain areas along the ridge of the Bayfield Peninsula, up in the higher terrain of Ashland and Iron County. So you're really going to see some of those highest amounts, possibly up into the 2-foot mark around the Hurley-Saxon Ironwood area. For our winter storm, however, the biggest story at this point are the winds, how high those are going to be, and the impacts that are expected from them. So we're expecting these north to northwest winds starting this afternoon and this evening, really ramping up. They are knocking at our door at the moment, just starting to come into western Minnesota, and will be cruising across the area this evening. Expecting gusts 35 to 50 miles per hour, widespread, with higher gusts still along the North Shore. So could see some of those gusts up into the 60 mile per hour range for portions of the North Shore. So winds are going to be significantly increasing in strength this afternoon and evening, and then remaining strong through the day tomorrow and through much of the day Saturday as well. What this is going to do is it's going to pick up all of that snow that has fallen, all of that very light snow, and blow it around very, very easily. We have very, very blowable snow out there at the moment. In the areas where we are expecting either the highest winds or high winds with the most snow, which would be the North and South Shore, that's where we're expecting those blizzard conditions, those really kind of deadly whiteout conditions to be. The other hazard that exists with these high winds is we have a lot of trees that remain snow loaded out there from last week's snowstorm. Combined with those strong winds, we do have a concern for additional tree damage and power outages as those trees potentially come down. From here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to walk through the separate regions that we have, really dial in to the hazards for those different regions, and make sure folks understand the headline decisions for whatever region they are concerned about. So starting kind of on the Minnesota Arrowhead North Shore area, we do have blizzard warnings going into effect later this evening. Along the North Shore, the primary impact, the primary concern here is from those really, really strong winds. So we are currently forecasting wind gusts of 50 to 60 miles per hour cruising down the North Shore. Some of those highest wind gusts are going to be tomorrow afternoon and evening, so Friday afternoon and evening, with whiteout conditions expected. Blizzard conditions are expected, so super reduced visibilities, as well as that potential for power outages and tree damage. We do, especially as you get more into Cook County, have the potential to see a little bit more accumulating snow up there. If we have falling snow at the same time that we have blowing snow, really going to reduce those visibilities. So at the moment, we do have a winter weather advisory in effect for the North Shore, and that's going to upgrade to a blizzard warning at 6 p.m. today and continue through tomorrow and into midday Saturday. As well, you will see in all of the graphics I'm about to show you, there is a wind chill advisory in effect starting right now and going into the weekend, and I'll discuss that at the very end of this presentation. So Minnesota Arrowhead, your primary concern is going to be super, super high winds and a prolonged period of them. Moving down around the lake, coming into the Twin Ports area, again, the primary and pretty much only hazard here are going to be those strong winds. Not quite as strong on the North Shore, but definitely a locally higher wind gusts are expected than compared to elsewhere in Minnesota and northern Minnesota. So wind gusts 40 to 50 mile per hour, definitely going to see some of those whiteout conditions. They may not be quite as constant as they will be along the North and South Shore, and they may be more in unprotected areas than all areas, but definitely that's a concern. Because of that, we do still have a winter storm warning in effect for the Twin Ports. So we have not downgraded the Twin Ports to a winter weather advisory because of those locally higher wind gusts causing a hazard that is still expected. Could see a little bit of light snow in the Twin Ports here, but we're really not expecting it to accumulate too much. And again, that wind chill advisory is in effect. Moving further around the lake into the northwest Wisconsin snowbelt, so portions of Bayfield, Ashland, Iron County. These are the folks that are really going to be seeing the bulk of their snowfall accumulation yet to come. So expecting that lake effect to be picking up tonight into tomorrow morning. Could see some moderate to heavy snowfall rates really just coming down. At the same time, we're going to see those winds increasing tomorrow as well. Now, winds aren't going to be quite as strong over here, more in the 30 to 45 mile per hour range, though that is still packs quite the punch. But with that actively falling snow, 30 to 45 miles per hour is going to be plenty to get those whiteout conditions that are expected, especially areas like Highway 13 in northern Douglas and Bayfield County, areas of Highway 2 from the roundabout with Highway 13 in the bottom of Schwamgen Bay there, and then especially across Ashland to Hurley. Those really kind of unprotected areas or areas that are right along Lake Superior could be super, super impacted by whiteout conditions along with accumulating snow on those roadways. So really hazardous travel conditions tomorrow and then into Saturday here, with that strong winds and actively falling snow, with all of the concerns that come along with that. So we do have a blizzard warning for the South Shore for Bayfield, Ashland, and Iron County. That goes into effect just a little bit later than the North Shore one because we're not expecting that snow and wind to ramp up quite as quickly. So that blizzard warning does go into effect at midnight tonight, with some of the most extreme impacts from this storm for you folks more later in the day tomorrow. Wind chill advisory in effect there as well. The only folks that might not quite reach those really, really cold temps are going to be on the tip of the Bayfield Peninsula. You'll be the warm spot with all of that water surrounding you, but still going to be quite chilly. Elsewhere in northeast Minnesota, so outside of the Twin Ports, outside of the North Shore, you folks are in a winter weather advisory at the moment, as well as a wind chill advisory. Here we do still have strong winds. We don't have quite as much new snow, though what is there is certainly blowable. We're expecting those winds 30 to 45 miles per hour. Could see a little bit of some light snow accumulation, maybe a trace to a couple inches. Farther north would be those higher accumulations possible, kind of overnight tonight and into Friday. And with those winds, we are still expecting hazards to happen. That's why we do have that winter weather advisory still in effect. So reduced visibilities, whiteout conditions, especially if you're trying to travel on roads that have big open sections. Think like the more open sections of Highway 53, for example, or Highway 2, where it kind of is going through some of those bog and swamp areas. Those are going to be really, really affected. And so you might kind of have intermittent whiteout conditions as you travel on those roads, but we're not expecting them to be quite as consistent or as widespread. So winter weather advisory there in effect for the concern for blowing snow, reducing visibilities, as well as the potential for power outages and tree damage, as mentioned before. Flipping over the state border, elsewhere in northwest Wisconsin, here we have winter weather advisories in effect as well through Saturday evening. Pretty similar story to the elsewhere in northeast Minnesota. We have some light snow. Much of it ended this morning, but especially if you're closer to some of those areas in Douglas, Bayfield, Ashland, Iron County, could see a couple inches yet by Sunday. And that's really what that winter weather advisory is covering, is a little bit of snow accumulation plus those winds leading to those kind of intermittent whiteout conditions possible. Should hopefully be a little bit better in more densely forested areas, but especially along some of the bigger highways, you're going to run into these open areas where those winds are really going to be able to scream across, or if you're on the edge of a lake, something like that, expect those kind of whiteout conditions to be coming through there. and we've got the wind chill advisory there as well. So reduced visibility is still a concern, whiteouts kind of intermittently possible, plus that power outage and tree damage. We've received photos recently, actually from northwest Wisconsin, of some really heavily snow-laden trees that could be definitely impacted by winds of 30 to 45 miles per hour. And then just a quick reminder, we are going to be cold through this entire period. So expecting dangerous wind chills, minus 25 to minus 40 degrees, returning tonight and continuing through the day Saturday. So we do have wind chill advisories that are in effect at the moment, and they are going through at least Saturday. In portions of northeast Minnesota, they are actually going into Sunday morning. And if you do venture out and you hit some of those really dangerous whiteout conditions, these temperatures could be life-threatening. On the actual temperature side of things, everything should remain below zero for the most part. The one caveat to that would be the very, very tip of the Bayfield Peninsula, maybe staying a little bit warmer. But in temperatures like this, we are thinking about frostbite happening in 15 minutes or less to any kind of exposed skin. It can be very, very dangerous. So make sure that if you do have to venture out, you're preparing for extreme cold weather by having things like jumper cables, flashlight, shovel, extra clothing, a blanket in your car in case you do get stranded. That is all I have for this update. If you have any questions, please let us know. And other than that, I hope that you stay safe and warm and you have a happy holiday weekend. Thanks.